So I think probably more importantly for present purposes, I graduated Schechter just a few years ago in 1992. But consistent with what I always did when I was a kid, this morning I showed up without my kippah. So thank you to SSDS for giving me a kippah. So you heard a little bit about what I do, but what I want to talk to you, and I want to leave plenty of time for questions and all that, but I want to talk to you guys in terms of this Anima Amin, is about the concept of toleration, okay? Which is an important concept in the way that we lead our lives, and also importantly, in the way that we conduct our national affairs, in the way that our republic runs. And I want to start with a particular person who lived hundreds and hundreds of years ago. And I want to see a show of hands. How many of you guys have heard of, actually, let's start with a concept and then we'll move to a person. How many of you have heard of the concept of the separation of church and state? Is that a familiar phrase? Okay, looks like most people have heard that phrase before. Can anyone tell me who that comes from? Does anyone know?
I'm pretty sure it was like James Madison. It was, or if not, it was whoever wrote the Bill of Rights.
So I'm actually thinking of someone before them. And this person was someone that all of the framers of the Constitution, including Madison and Hamilton, looked to for inspiration. He also came up with separating our government into the executive and the legislative and the judiciary. So he's a little bit earlier in time. Does anyone know who I'm thinking of? His name is John Locke. Okay. John Locke is the person who gave us the separation of church and state. John Locke is the person who gave us our three kinds of government, and it was John Locke's inspiration more than any other person in the world, I'm pretty sure, who gave us the US Constitution, right, under which we all live today. So John Locke wrote this great essay, and it's probably one of the best things ever written in English. You're not going to get it, I would imagine, in middle school, but you might get it in high school, and you will almost certainly get it if you're taking the right classes in college. He wrote this essay called On Toleration, and it's from that essay that we get the concept of the separation between church and state. So John Locke was really, really worried about what it meant for people to have heartfelt beliefs of their own and for the government not to allow those. And so when the framers, not so long after Locke's life, come and they write the Constitution of the United States, they make sure to protect, right, the ability of people to practice their religion. We call this the Free Exercise Clause. It's in the Bill of Rights. And they also do something else. In what we call the Establishment Clause, they make a rule that says the state, the government, can't impose upon you a religion, okay? And that's really, really important because in Europe, in France, right, it's a Catholic government. In England, it's an Anglican government. I guess the United Kingdom by then, whatever they were at that point, Great Britain. And that's pretty common. That's pretty much how the Western world runs governments. And even in the Americas, right, when the Pilgrims come, what do they set up? Right here in Massachusetts?
Church, Catholic government.
Nope.
Protestant government?
Very much so. In fact, they were such Protestants, they protested so much, they had to leave, right, England to come here for religious freedom. In Rhode Island, our neighbors to the south, they set up religious freedom. And Rhode Island becomes the model for all of us. So this is a really important concept. It allows, among other things, all of us to be here today, right? There is no country more welcoming in the world, I think, to Jews, well, maybe Israel, but the United States of America has been really important in establishing religious freedom for us and our ability to have this education here and your ability, and lots of other people to have religious freedom. So this is a very important concept in our history, in our constitutional structure. It is also, as I mentioned at the start, a really important concept that I hope all of you bring to your lives. Now, you are all probably not going to have a lot of power to tell someone not to practice their religion, thanks to the Constitution. But toleration goes further than just religious liberty. It goes to how people think. And this very much gets to life, at least as I remember it, in middle school, in high school, in college, and beyond. One of the things that you are probably starting to see, and that may become more real to you as you leave Solomon Schechter and go to schools that might be similar to it, okay, by the way. And certainly when you go on to college and meet lots of different kinds of people, is you will meet people who are not like you. And I don't just mean people who don't look like you. And I don't just mean people who aren't from the same place that you're from. I mean people who don't think like you. In fact, they may think thoughts that you find horrific. They may believe things truly deeply in their hearts that you find anathema. And what toleration is all about, what tolerance is all about, is understanding that a person who disagrees with you isn't necessarily a bad person. Oftentimes, they're a very good person. They just have a very different outlook on the world. They may be bringing to bear a set of principles that are different from those that you hold dear. It doesn't make them evil. It doesn't make them bad. And tolerance is all about working with those people, understanding they might be different, learning why, maybe understanding a little bit more about where they're coming from, and maybe the premises of their arguments or the bases for the opinions that they hold actually make some sense if you accept some of the premises from which they start. Okay, so I could probably go on this for a long time, but basically, and I did want to leave time for questions, what I want to encourage all of you to do, we're going into what I expect will be a pretty rough year in this country. We're going to have a presidential election in less than a year, and a lot of nasty things are going to get said. And probably most people around you kind of agree with you, but there are a lot of people out there in the world who may not. And as you think about this year, and you think about yourselves and your life going forward, what I want you always to think about is the importance of toleration, the importance of human understanding, ben adam l'chavero. Because to me, this is what allows the world to work. So thank you for having me for Anima Amini, and I'm happy to do any questions.